everyone, what's going on? Zazubaar here, and, well, I'm kinda back, so it's been a long time since it's just been you and me sitting in front of the camera, shooting the shit, and, I could go into a long and rambly explanation as to why it's been a while since I've been on YouTube and doing solo videos, or doing much of anything. I only put up one episode of SOS so far since I've been back, quote-unquote, from my little hiatus, but I don't really think you guys are going to want to hear that, and also I don't really want to talk about it because most of it sucked, so let's not even get into it. Let's talk about some positive things. After all, I only came back to YouTube just because I miss talking to you guys, man. I miss putting myself out there, putting out my thoughts, and just going, what do you guys think of this? And I decided to come back and do a video tonight because I actually had some free time, so that was good. And also because I figured I had to do a video on this at some point, and I thought we were going to talk about it in SOS, and I was just going to be able to get my thoughts out on there, but sadly, the episode of SOS where we were going to discuss this thing, I missed for tragic personal reasons. But we won't get any more into that than that. So, I'm going to do a video on it myself. That episode of SOS is going up. I'm rendering it actually just as I'm recording this video, so it'll kind of be like a sister video to that in order to give my thoughts on this piece of news that the boys are able to get into without me. So without any further ado, let's just dive right in. So a bunch of shit has happened since I've been on hiatus. A bunch of news has come out. A bunch of massive developments in the geek and kaiju communities have just fucking flooded themselves onto the internet since I've been away, and I would be an idiot to try and talk about all of them as I've missed them. So I've just decided to talk about two major things that I've missed and then just move on with the future. Now, what are those two major things, you might ask? Is it Star Wars? Is it Spectre? Is it... what else came out? Suicide Squad trailer? That was a while ago, though. There's been a whole bunch of stuff that's come out. So, well, I'm not going to talk about Star Wars because... what do I have to say about Star Wars? I like Star Wars. I like Jedi. Fucking... you know, all that stuff. I love that. Spectre, I will be doing a video on at some point with probably Dylan, maybe a few other people as well. But not right now. I need to see it again. So I'm not even going to talk about Spectre because I need to see it again. But that just came out this past weekend. So what am I doing a video about? Well, you astute viewers out there may have glanced at the background and looked at that picture and gone, Bill, I can read. I can interpret visuals. Well, in that case, good on you, good sir. Or madam, good on you. So yes, we are going to be discussing the 2015 Gamera trailer that premiered at New York Comic Con in September. So yeah, it took me a while for me to get on the ball on this one, but again, a bunch of shit happened, so I didn't really have the chance to make a video. So I'm gonna do it now. So, okay, this came completely out of nowhere. When this hit, I was really sick when this hit, so it blew my hair back when I saw this thing pop up on Facebook the day it came out during New York Comic Con, because nobody knew that this was even still happening. So back last October, I think it was, I just read an article about this, I think it was last October, some magazine had put out like a list of upcoming projects that were going to be produced by Catawaka Pictures in the upcoming couple of years, and one of them was a new Gamera movie to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Gamera, which just passed this year. Which I only saw really celebrated by the fan community, nothing really by the official producers of Gamera, who haven't made anything in 10 years, to be fair, but even still, they didn't really put anything out, aside from promising a new movie, or at least accidentally leaking the idea for a new movie. So yeah, most of it was just fans. You know, I went to G-Fest this year, and of course it was all over there. You know, it was pretty much the theme, as Godzilla's 60th anniversary was last year. So, finally, we got a little bit of information, and by a little bit of information, I mean fucking footage of this new Gamera movie. So, yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere, and everybody lost their minds. Everybody freaked out because this thing... because it came out of nowhere and because it was as kick-ass as it was, everybody just lost their shit, including me. It was a really nice surprise, because we don't get stuff like this anymore. You know, it's like if a trailer is coming out for a thing, we know about it weeks before. They're just like, oh, we're gonna put the trailer out on this date, except for Civil War. Come on, Marvel, when are we gonna get that? Anyway, so, but they should do it like this, just drop it and surprise everybody, because that just makes it more special, where it's just like, you're just walking around your daily life, you glance at your phone, and holy shit, there's a, how long is it? 4-minute Gamera trailer! That's off the wall! Okay, so without any further ado, let's just dive right in. What do I actually think of this thing? So, there's not really a ton to say. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but this is kind of more like in the lines of test footage than it is actual trailer for the movie that we know absolutely nothing about aside from what's in this trailer. We know who's directing it, we know who's producing it, whose names I don't have available on me right now. You can look it up on your own. You're a free-thinking, independent person. You can do that. Why do I gotta do everything for you? Simba, did I say you could open my door? I'm in the middle of talking about Gamera and you just opened my door. That's so rude. Why don't cats knock? Excuse me for 1 second. So, okay, Gamera. Well, again, as awesome as it was to get this trailer, and as much as it is long, being 4 minutes long, we don't really get a great sense of what exactly this thing is about from the trailer, which, of course, you know, most trailers give that impression. Star Wars, of course, being a recent example of that. But this is more in line, and I'm going to say this is, I was heavily reminded of the Godzilla 2014 sort of teaser test trailer that they showed at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con in 2012, I believe it was. I'm pretty sure it was 2012. This was extremely reminiscent of that. I'm not going to go as far to say ripoff, because this shows a lot more than that did, particularly of the monsters. And I think we get a better sense of what the story is from this than we did from that, but this is extremely reminiscent of that, just from a sense of, this is just sort of like, well, this is sort of what we're going to do with the character in this new movie. This is our tone. And tonally, I think people are excited about this because this is not just, they're doing what I think a lot of people wanted them to do with Gamera. They want something more in line with Heisei. That seems to be the general consensus that fans have, and that's really what I wanted from this new Gamera movie anyway. I wanted to go back to Heisei because I've talked about it in Gamera-palooza and everything, but that's my Gamera. That's the Gamera that I'm the most interested in and I'm the biggest fan of. You know, I like Showa Gamera, and Gamera the Brave is watchable, but and good, but talked about it, not really my cup of tea. But this looks like my cup of tea. It looks like they were literally like, I wonder what Zazubaar wants us to do with Gamera. I know they didn't, because why would they care what I think? But it kind of looks like that, because I wanted something that was a return to Heisei, something that played it more seriously, but still kept all of the tropes and expectations of Gamera in there. So number one, he's heroically sort of placed in the trailer. So, you know, Gamera, of course, for those of you who may not know, who may be watching this, and if you are watching this, go watch another video that explains Gamera's origins, because I'm not going to do it here. But basically, Gamera's generally more often than not the good guy, with the only real exceptions being his first 2 movies. Otherwise, he is generally perceived as the hero. So, in this, they still keep that place. We're not going back to the roots of 1965 and putting him in the sort of destroyer route, or sort of misunderstood King Kong-esque monster that he was back in 65. Which good, because he's too similar to Godzilla when he's played that way. So I'm glad that they're doing it more in line with the popular conception of Gamera. And just sort of playing that in a more serious way, like they did in the Heisei series. So in this, you got Gamera doing what Gamera does best: protecting children and murdering Gyaos in the most bloody, horrifying way possible. So that was another thing I was really glad to see in this. So I know I'm jumping all over the place, I apologize, but I'm going to do that because this trailer is extremely exciting, and again, because it's sort of more just test footage, it's kind of hard to go chronologically of like, okay, so then this happens, and then that's how I felt about this. So I'm going to kind of jump all over the place, but so you got Gamera being extremely violent with the monsters that he's fighting, which is something that I was happy to see, because that's a trend in the Gamera series that definitely in the Godzilla films have definitely not shied away from gore between the monsters, but Gamera was always way more brutal than Godzilla was, at least in my opinion. Usually when Godzilla would kill a monster, usually you'd get a big explosion and that would be it. Usually he blows them up with his atomic breath, but in the case of Gamera, Gamera is a brutal motherfucker. He chops people up, he fucking rips arms off, he fucking throws Barugan in water and melts his ass. I mean, Jesus Christ, this dude ain't fucking around. He's just like, listen, you had a chance to not be a dickhead, now you're gonna die. So I always liked that about Gamera. So I'm glad that we're seeing that in this, because when you see the Gyaos coming towards the kid, towards the beginning of the trailer, and you just see Gamera's, what I think is supposed to be either his hand or his foot, come down and just crush the Gyaos under his weight, I was just like, holy shit, this guy ain't fucking around. So I was glad to see that return to form for Gamera as well, because that's very Heisei and that's very Showa as well. So I was glad to see that. Let's talk about the Gyaos for a second, though, just because... Oh, you know what? Before we talk about the Gyaos, let me just set up sort of the narrative that's told in this and sort of how I feel about it. So, this is played like a flashback, sort of, where it opens 10 years prior to the present, as it is, and shows a bunch of Gyaos attacking Tokyo, which has happened a million times in the Gamera universe, including the opening of Gamera the Brave, which I was sort of reminded of structurally and story-wise more than I was tonally, because again, tonally this is more in line with Heisei than anything else, but definitely story-wise, it definitely seems to be a little bit kind of like the Brave, where you had a bunch of Gyaos attack Japan a bunch of years prior to the events of the movie itself. Gamera showed up, saved everybody, and now we're following the story of a human protagonist who remembers that and is now present as a new threat emerges, and Gamera comes back to presumably save the day in his destructive and fire-filled way, of course. So you got back 10 years in Tokyo, you got a whole mess of Gyaos attacking, and you got a child and his father running away. And one of the Gyaos, of course, ends up killing this kid's father, and Gamera ends up then killing the Gyaos and saving the kid. Gamera has a big epic roar. He blows all of the Gyaos away with a pure stream of fire. That's an important distinction from the past couple of Gamera movies, because Gamera hasn't just done a pure stream of fire. Pretty much since the Showa era, there was a couple of moments in Guardian and Iris, I don't remember any from Legion, where he sort of projected his fireballs to sort of be a pure stream of fire, but in Heisei and the One Millennium movie, Gamera more had fireballs, where he would just sort of fire out just a little pop of fire just to basically blow up his enemy, which I think they did sort of to more distinguish it from Godzilla and all the other monsters that breathe fire. So that was a smart move on their part, but I don't know, I don't mind Gamera just blowing away people with his, oh, not people, but probably a few people. I mean, it's kind of hard to control that when you're a giant monster and you really don't care. But it's nice to see that sort of pure stream of fire returning. And that was another thing about this that I really dug. It was sort of a happy medium between referencing the Showa stuff, as this is Gamera's 50th anniversary, and also going, Heisei's the sort of definitive version of Gamera now, so we're going to make it look the most like that. But there were a couple of Showa trimmings on there that I appreciated. Like, overall, it's got sort of a classic film look where it sort of looks like it's shot with found footage. It's not like a found footage movie, but it sort of looks like shaky cam and all that, which I know some people may not like. I'm not a huge fan of shaky cam myself. It didn't bother me with this. There wasn't a ton of it. There was just like one or two moments where it sort of looked like that, so I didn't care at all, and I thought it worked for what they were trying to do. Trying to do a more horrific, sort of epic, sort of scary version of Gamera. Something more in line with Godzilla 2014, which I'll get to that in a minute, because I'm going to have to talk about the comparisons. But yeah, the black and white sort of blocky text that pops up to sort of give us information about the characters and the time and all that is done in a very Showa-looking style, where it's all black and white and big blocky Japanese text. It reminded me of the original Gamera and classic Showa monster movies. But the other thing was that the logo at the end, since I think this movie is just called Gamera, although I have also heard it referred to as Gamera Legacy, so I'm not really sure what the deal is there, but this movie is either called Gamera or Gamera Legacy. but the text they used for just the name Gamera looked very, very Showa. So that was cool. But yeah, there's a healthy mix in this of Showa and Heisei concepts, as I mentioned. But let's talk about the Gyaos for a minute, shall we? So the Gyaos get a redesign in this that I know not a lot of people are crazy about. So again, presumably the movie's going to open with sort of a flashback. There's a lot of headroom going on here. There we go. The movie's going to open with sort of a flashback. And we're going to see the Gyaos sort of as Gamera's primary enemy back 10 years ago. And they've redesigned the Gyaos from their Millennium and Heisei appearances. And probably not for the better. So they look very derpy. They almost look more like dogs in their face than they do like bats or just sort of dinosaurian like they do, or bird-like as they did in Heisei and Showa, and also a little bit Millennium. Since we only saw them for like 2 seconds in the Brave, and I couldn't even like describe to you what they look like in that movie because we always see them from a distance. But in this, they look more canine-like in the face. They have longer, more rounded snouts. They don't look as intelligent or as cunning or as just intimidating. They look more derpy. Their eyes are bigger, and they don't have as much sort of going on in their face. It's just sort of the basic triangular plate on top that you get with Gyaos designs, and then it's just sort of like this blank-looking face, and it just makes them look derpy. I don't remember if we see the beam. I could watch it, but I don't feel like it at the moment because I want to keep talking. But I don't remember if we see the beam, but I imagine they'll leave that mostly as it was shown in Heisei and Millennium and pretty much Showa too. So I'm assuming they'll leave that the same, but overall design-wise, they've really fucked up the face. But I'm assuming that the Gyaos aren't going to be in it that much, so it probably won't be a big deal, and it probably won't be that distracting. But I guess we should also talk about the fact that ain't no Suitimation going on here, kids. This be CGI. So, okay. So I guess this would be a good point to talk about the Godzilla 2014 comparison. So, that's what everybody said when this came out, including me. I was just like, wow, that looks a lot like Godzilla 2014. Mainly in just not the style of the CG. Because if anything, and again, I'm not the first person to say this, but if anything, the CG in this was way closer to the Attack on Titan mix of CGI and Suitimation that we got in the live-action Attack on Titan movie. So that's what I was the most reminded of. In this. So in that it's sort of over the top and poppy, and there isn't really an attempt made to make it look like it's really happening, like Godzilla 2014 tried to do, where it sort of tries to integrate the live action and CG. Not to say that the CG's bad necessarily. It's not as good as, you know, your big budget Hollywood movie, but it's better than you would think for a Japanese Gamera movie. It's pretty solid, especially on Gamera, but we'll get to Gamera in a minute. But yeah, so there's no suits going on here. It's all CGI, and that sort of over the top, almost more sort of comic book sort of poppy look to it, I think works, and especially distinguishing it from Godzilla 2014 in that they don't really seem to be playing this realistically. The monsters themselves are not designed in a sense of we're trying to make these animals, these creatures, look like they can exist in reality. That doesn't seem to be what they're trying to do, and I don't think they should, because Gamera is never really supposed to have been realistic, and I don't need a realistic Gamera movie. What I would like is, of course, a Gamera movie that takes itself seriously, as we got in the Heisei series. But I don't need realism to really come into the equation. So it's kind of good to see that the CG is a little bit more distinguished from some of your other CGI big budget action movie fare, despite looking like Attack on Titan. I just think it works better for Gamera, and it made it more dynamic and sort of exciting, and that was the big thing with this trailer, is just that it's a very dynamic and exciting and wastes no time whatsoever. It gets to the things you want to see, the really cool shit, and just moves on. So it was really efficient in that sense as well. But I guess I can just talk about Gamera then. So, okay. So again, CG's not bad. Again, not your Hollywood action movie quality, or your good Hollywood action movie quality, but it gets the job done. Both of the sequences that they show of monster action takes place during an overcast day where like the sky is gray because there's all this debris and fire and everything. And then the second present day sequence takes place at night where we see the kid from 10 years ago. He's all grown up now, and there's this new monster attacking. We'll talk about the new monster in a minute. And Gamera shows back up, and we see him in more of his glory, and we get to see him do a proper roar, which is really cool. And yay, we get the classic Gamera roar back. Woo! I would not have been on board with this movie had it not been for that classic roar, because if that classic roar hadn't been in there, I would have been like, nope, I ain't having this shit. It's not Gamera to me. Fuck this. So, thankfully that's in there, and they just took the classic roar and put it back in, so I'm happy with that. They didn't really, they made it a little deeper. They didn't adjust it as much as Legendary did Godzilla's roar, and that makes sense because this is still the original producers of Gamera, or at least the original company. Well, not even that really, but it's the people who own the rights flatly. It's not like somebody doing an adaptation. So it doesn't surprise me that they just took the roar and basically left it. Gave them a couple of more deep grunts to go around it, which I didn't mind. But just on a level of design, this is where the 2014 comparisons are going to start to come in more strongly. So Gamera himself looks pretty fucking amazing. So it's, again, pretty much exactly what you would want of a CGI modern day update of Gamera. And I don't mind that they took cues from 2014, which they definitely did. From 2014 Godzilla, because I think that it's done in a way where it looks like they said, we're gonna do a similar thing to what Legendary did for Godzilla's design. Take the classic stuff, take the best Godzilla designs, and sort of mold it into something that fits better in a CGI mold. And they did that pretty perfectly. I really have no complaints about the design, except maybe... No, I genuinely can't think of anything to really complain about without sounding like a fucking nitpicking asshole. So, it's pretty perfect. He looks intimidating, but not evil. And I think that throughout the movie, we might see sort of him in different lighting, in different lighting conditions and in different contextual situations that will make him look less sort of intimidating and bring out some of his more benevolent aspects, because I think that's important with Gamera. You don't want him to look as sort of flatly intimidating as Godzilla, because he's supposed to be a guardian rather than a destroyer. So you definitely want him to look intimidating and powerful, but you don't really need him to look scary. And this Gamera definitely walks that line. He's not as sort of like fucking nut-wrenching scary as he was in Iris. But that's definitely the closest thing I can think to compare it to is the Iris design. Which if you're going to do a Gamera design in CG... that or Guardian is probably your best bet. So I think it's wise that they ended up going with something that looks more like Iris. But the Iris Gamera, not Iris, it's herself or himself, whichever gender Iris was, because I don't remember at the moment, because it sort of flip-flops depending on what version you watch. Anyway, so I really dig it. It also, in my opinion, has a lot of the original Gamera design in it, particularly in the face. He's got sort of that more angular but got smooth aspects on it, more angry looking face that he had in 65 and 66, which is cool because that's the best that Showa Gamera ever looked. So it's good that they're taking some of those aspects. Again, particularly from the face, looks the most like original Showa Gamera. So that's really cool. What else? Sort of taken from Heisei as well, the plates on Gamera's back also seem to move, which I'm sure is done to make the transition from flight to walking look a little bit cooler and a little bit more organic, as opposed to just, well, we can't really show it, so we'll just show a puff of smoke and poof, he's walking on two legs, which is how they've usually handled it. So, except for Iris. So, smart move to borrow that. It looks good. We'll see how it looks when we actually see him flying. No flying in this. Now, he might not fly, given the information we have in this. We don't see any indication of him actually flying, but he seems to come out of nowhere in the flashback part. So I'm sure he's gonna do it, at least in some capacity, even if it's not the full flying saucer. I'm sure they're gonna have him do the 2 jets out of the back, which I'd be fine with if they just did that. He looks cooler when he does that anyway. But you know what? If you're gonna do Gamera, do the flying saucer. It looks awesome. Do it like Guardian, where they were just like, that doesn't fucking make any sense. Somebody must have designed him specifically to do that, because there's no way that would evolve in a creature naturally. So, on that point, Gamera's origin let's talk about for a second, because there ain't no indication of what's going on with his origins in this. So, again, just because of how much this looks like Heisei, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he was built by Atlantis or some other or some other culture or some other party as a guardian, as a defender, as a weapon even. So, because that's just it's the most popular origin for Gamera, and I'm sure that they're gonna go with that just because that's the one that most people are familiar with now who know Gamera's lore, and also it's the most popular one. So I think they would be remiss not to do a version of that. Even if they change it, that'd be cool. You don't have to just lift everything right from Heisei and do it again. You can make tweaks here and there, but I think Heisei is the good jumping on point just because it's the best Gamera stuff. And it's the coolest mythos for that character, so I think them using that as a jumping on point, again, at least seemingly so, is smart, so I'm hoping they do that with the origin as well. Just having him show up randomly, just as a prehistoric turtle like he was in the original, will be a little lame. And again, way too similar to Godzilla 2014, so I think they're going to avoid that as a matter of course. Not that they're avoiding sort of their inspirations from Godzilla 2014. I mean, I don't think they were making any bones about the fact that they looked at Godzilla 2014 and said, I guess it's time for Gamera again, and I guess this is what the people want from their kaiju. So, I don't think they're shying away from that. I don't mind that. That's always been the case. Gamera has always sort of looked to what Godzilla did to be modern and updated and sort of gone, alright, so that's what Godzilla did, what can we do? And, you know, there's always sort of inspirations and rip-offs that come along the way, but just based on how really, really faithful this is to classic Gamera tropes in the mythos that I can see, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty solid in terms of, you know, just doing Gamera right and doing a good in a modern updated setting and not just ripping off Godzilla 2014 because that made money, and that's what Katawaka thinks people want from their kaiju movies now. So everything looks pretty perfect with this, guys. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, we can't really make heads or tails on Gamera's origin. We'll just have to see about that. Again, I'm hoping for the Heisei thing, but we'll see. They could do something different. But then, of course, you've also got the new monster in there towards the end, which looks sort of like a mix between the Cloverfield monster, Leatherback from Pacific Rim a little bit I saw in there, and just sort of its own thing. It's got some tentacles going on, and it's got a really cool looking power where it shoots like a ball of energy out of its shoulder that like absorbs a bunch of crap into it and blows it up. So it's sort of like, it reminded me of a gun, this is going to be random, a gun that the Iron Giant had in the movie The Iron Giant, where he would like fire out a big ball of energy and it would like absorb a bunch of shit into it and blow it up. So it looked like that, and that's a really cool power. So and unique. I don't think we've ever seen a kaiju in stuff that I've seen. Again, having not wandered too far into your TV kaiju, it's the first time I've ever seen a kaiju do that, so that's really cool. But this is going on longer than I intended, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So overall, guys, this is pretty perfect. I really have nothing bad to say about it, except that, you know, I can only be cautiously optimistic just because there's really not a great sense of the story in this, or sort of, or the actual action, because we don't really get a fight in this, so to speak, or, you know, acting-wise or any of that. We can't tell any of that from this, but just tonally and just design-wise, from a pure aesthetic and presentation standpoint, this is pretty great, and I'm really, really pumped for this movie. This looks like the Gamera movie that I have been wanting for years now, so hoping Katawaka doesn't let us down, or Katakawa. I constantly forget which one it is. You guys know what I mean, right? So this looks pretty perfect, so not much negative to say, but if you guys have any concerns, drop that down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to know what's bugging you guys about this, because personally, I can't really see anything that's setting alarms off in my head to go, that might be a thing to be concerned about, but we'll just have to see. So, in terms of when this thing is coming out and how long we're going to have to wait for it, we ain't got no fucking idea, because they haven't set a release date, they haven't said how they're going to release it, none of that. We know that it's happening, we know that it looks pretty fucking cool, and we know that there's a guy directing it. So, that's all we can say. I doubt it's going to come out this year. That would just be completely not feasible. Maybe it will. I mean, they put this thing out without us having any idea that anything was going to come out, so I could be totally off base, but I doubt it's going to come out this year, since they've only got 2 more months to do that. So I doubt it, but we'll have to see. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for my thoughts on the Gamera 2015 trailer. Hope you guys enjoyed. I really enjoyed coming back, talking about kaiju stuff again. That was a blast, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. So look out for another video that I'm going to put up right after this one. I'm going to record it right now too, about another major kaiju news development that happened while I was on my hiatus. So look out for that. So until next time, everyone, continue to watch the podcast, continue to look out for me returning and posting new videos. I can't promise any kind of set schedule for anything right now, because my life is like it's like this. It's just in pieces. So bear with me. I'd like to get back to doing this regularly, but I can't promise anything right now. But I enjoyed this, so hopefully I'll be diving back into some more regular video production soon. So thanks as always for your support, everyone. Really love you guys. So thanks a lot. See you in the next video. Zazubaar out.